Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to Sissy's Craft Room. I am Sissy with Sissy's Cards and Crafts here in Ontario, Canada. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and would like to demonstrate or do this card tonight with, it's one of last year's products, but it is still in the big catalog. And it's still, you're able to get it. It's just unfortunately not bundled with the dies anymore, but you can get the bundles and the dies. The paper that we're using you cannot get, but there's all sorts of fall papers out there. Stampin' Up! Does have some on hand, so just have a peruse and look to see what they've got if you want to use their DSP. But tonight we're going to make a book binding card, which is technically a fun fold card. So fun fold just means it's folded in a way that doesn't open as quite a normal card. And so really it's one of the easiest fun folds, but this stays solid and then it opens up here. So we've got, I'm thankful to have you as a friend. So let's dive in and start making this card. And I just wanted to share the little character that my son Joshua, who has Down syndrome, had made. He does these creations with little pipe cleaners, and I think they're just so awesome. So this was one he left on my desk for me to share. All right, so we are going to start. I've got some measurements in that here, but it is quite basic to do. No, basic meaning very straightforward. Okay, so we have our cardstock, which is that Cajun Craze. It's beautiful fall color. I just think I love it. And it's 8.5 by 11. We're going to cut it the lengthways here. So just cut it in half, and it makes it so easy to use our paper trimmer. So I'm just going to see 8.5, and half of that is 4 1/4. So I'm going to match it up at 4 1/4 and use the dark blade. That's the cutting blade. And you'll see I've got 2 equal parts. So I've got one for the next card. So then I'm going to turn it and we're going to fold it this way, right? Because that's the way the card is going to be. So obviously we want to be in the middle, which is going to be 5.5. And I'm going to use my scoring tool for that, which is the light gray one. So 5.5, I find it easier to measure up here at the top. I'm going to find my 5.5 there and score it there. And then because we are going to create that book binding, I want to also do it at 4.5 as well. Did I have that right? No, 4. I had it scored at 4. So that was 1.5. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we have 2 score lines here, and we're going to fold them over. So there's one. I'll grab my bone folder here to really crease that down. And now, so that's just our regular card. Now, for this one, I'm going to fold it back. And that creates that part that's going to be the part that's bound, or it's going to stick down. So there's that piece. Now, for the fall papers, I have the DSP, and this was from last year's stock. I still have oodles of it, so I'm going to use it. But there is some newer stock out here. This is one. It's more of a, this is new stuff for Thoughtful Journey, I believe it is. There's, that would work really well. It's more of a summer, and I was looking for fall. So we're not going to use that, but this was last year's fall paper. There's lots and lots of it here. So we've got a couple nice ones. I think I'm going to select that one. And you can see all the DSP is double-sided. There's just some gorgeous sceneries on this. So each side has some, there's some wires in there. Everything all gets thrown into the bag. Okay, so we're going to use that one. And then what we need is basically we want to have a piece that's going to go on here. And for something like this, you might want to center it directly if you want to get that a particular picture. But I did take some vellum and lay over this. So I'm going to give both options. If you do want to just have a centered picture, just make sure you cut it that way. But I think honestly, I'm just going to use kind of this top piece and just cut out the base here. And I want some of these darker colors because I am going to use that vellum. So DSP for this piece here is going to be 4 1/8 by, so I believe that is, if we look here, that's, yeah, so 4 1/8 is going to be this distance down. So that's what I want to cut here first. I'm sorry, my pup has just come in and she's going to do her happy dance, which involves some growling here. So if you hear some growling, it's just her in the background rolling around on her bed that's in here that she quite enjoys. So I think I'm just trying to decide which side I want. I think I actually want this darker side. Yeah. No, let's do this side. So then from this end in, I want to have 3 7/8. So I'm actually just going to flip it over so I can just cut it a little bit easier. And I'm here on my trimmer, and I'm actually going to go to 4 and pull it back. I find that easier to measure that way. Now we're going to use some of these other pieces, so we don't want to get rid of them yet. All right, so here we go. This is where this is going to fit. And now I've measured it and cut it so it's going to actually fit right along that fold. Normally I want an edge all the way around, but for this one, I want it to go right to that binding and that fold there. So we're just going to glue that on. And actually, I know this glue is done its day, so it's time to break out a new one here. Apologize, I didn't have that ready to go. Okay, so brand new glue. In the back of it here, the Stampin' Up! Is just genius with their papers, and everything just coordinates so well. I'm just going to bend that slightly and line that up to go right along and make sure it gets right on that fold. And then we're going to get a nice even border all the way around them. That liquid glue gives me that little bit of wiggle room to maneuver it and get it in the right position. Okay, so as I was saying, Stampin' Up! Does an amazing job getting everything coordinated. So because we've got this lovely piece, I'm actually going to flip it over and use the back side and make a nice piece to go here, to trim here. So this is going to be 4 1/8 by 1 inch. So we've really got that 4 1/8 already. So I just want to cut it down at 1 inch. Just going to pop it in the trimmer again here at that 1 inch mark. And kaboom, kaboom. Right there. All right, so then that's just going to sit in there like that. Now I am going to have a ribbon here, so I think I'm just going to pull this over a little bit. So my ribbon's going to sit here in that space. I could have actually had it just over 1, like a 1 1/8, I think would have been better measurement for that. Okay, the other thing to keep in mind too is the direction of your paper. Make sure if you have a direction to your paper that you do it that way and you glue it on your card properly, because nothing worse than getting your card together and realizing something's upside down. Well, I shouldn't say nothing worse. There's worse things in this world, but All right, so there we go. That is all said and done and ready to go. Now, I used a piece of vellum, and what I had done is I cut the vellum so it was the full size of this. So I'm going to have to take a piece off. So this part here measures 4 inches. So I'm going to just make sure I'm getting the right way here. Cut this at 4 inches. And sorry, my trimmer is just off to the side here, but I think to keep things kind of neat and tidy, I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so you can see just vellum in general softens that, and it just makes it a little bit less noticeable, kind of less color to it, I guess. I particularly like that. And then even with this, I took it and ran it through an embossing folder and embossed it. So that gave it that little bit of a lift to it, and just even more dimension, I guess, to it. So you can leave it like that, no problem. You can add this as well. So with an embossing folder, you need to have, this is Stampin' Up! Embossing folder. It is the Distressed Tile, and it's a 3D embossing folder, so it's a little bit deeper of a groove. And with any paper, a good idea before you emboss is just hit it with some water. Now, vellum can be tricky because it can make that water show a little bit, but it also can crack when you run it through the embossing folder, more so than your cardstock or your DSP. So kind of a mixture of what you want to do. I am going to spray it and I'm going to run it through the embossing folder. So a couple things to note is, one, let me just pull up my embossing machine. Now, I have the old Sizzix embossing machine. So it's kind of a bit of a beast. And that's where, like I mentioned before, the Stampin' Up! One. So this is the mini Stampin' Up! One. And it's not going to work because my folder is just a little bit too big. So if you're only going to get one machine, probably get the bigger one so you don't have to fiddle and fuss with this. And you can do anything, because of course I can do smaller things in here. But this one, the Sizzix, it just doesn't fold up, and it makes it, like I say, kind of a beast to move around and deal with. But embossing folders, I'm just going to fold it up. There is a line here to make sure I'm doing it straight. So I'm just going to give it a quick spritz of water. And all that does is just kind of loosens the fibers a little bit. Like, look, it curls it, right? So that's just loosening those fibers a little bit. I'm laying it in the folder. I like to kind of go at the front, line it up with that line. This one's not so much, not so worrisome, but some you really want to make sure you line them up or they'll be awful. They'll be crooked. Always have the spine, or the part that folds, go in first, so it pushes the pressure out. Now, you want your 3D embossing plate. It's going to be a little bit thicker. When we go to do some cuts, you'll notice I put it between two plates. Those two plates are too thick to lay together. This one's just kind of a medium-sized plate, or medium thickness, and it's going to go through. I'm running off the end of my desk here. All right, so I'm just going to pop this down on the floor again, so it's out of the way. Like I say, it's nice to have something that's not quite so beastly, but the Sizzix one does work great. Nothing wrong with it, except, like I say, it just doesn't fold up. Okay, so now we have, you can see here, we've got some, well, first off, it's a distressed look, so it's not that full pattern, but it's just, this is, you can feel bumpies, like the grooves go down in, or here they're raised, and it just gives it a nice look. I really like it. Okay, now, however, it deflects some of the color when we put it down like that. So what I did is I found that just a little bit too harsh. So you'll notice it's a little bit different here. So I took my blending brush. I apologize. I've got a bunch of them on the go here. All right. So, and I had my copper clay, which is close to the Cajun craze. You'll see it's very similar. And you're going to want a piece of paper because you don't want a full strength ink going on it. So you're just going to take a blending brush, which are these soft bristle brushes, and get some ink on it and rub a lot of it off. And then just take it over and rub it on the vellum. You'll get just a soft color, and it's going to stick more to the raised areas, so it colors them more. And this is going to help that just not be so stark white and blend into the background a little bit more. And it also enhances the design. To clean these, you can wash them, but just take and give them a good rub on some paper, get most of the ink off. We're good. This is my red and orange one, so I kind of stick to those colors, or brown, I think, on that, and it works well. All right, so now you can see it's much more diffused when I put it on there, and blends in a little bit more. So that's kind of what I like. Now, if you've joined on other videos or you've watched other people, there's a big complaint with the vellum and how to make it stick, because if I put glue, you're going to see, even on this one, I kind of did a little bit. I thought I'd go around all the edges and I could get away with it, but you can see the glue marks on there. A little disappointed by that. So what we're going to do, and what I've normally done, is I take my Tombow glue and I put just a little bit in the corners. Is the new one or the old one? I guess it's the old one. I'm going to put it over here so I don't mix that up again. And then we're just going to try to get it in the corners here. And even though it's difficult to see, it is there, and you're going to see it right through. So try not to use too much. And I'm just hitting the corners. And then we're going to leave it, and we're going to let it dry. Then when it dries, it's still tacky, and I'll be able to come back and get it to stick on my card. So there we go. I'm going to put that aside for a minute. And now we need to do the die cutting. So we've got 2 layers here. And this is with our set that I just had. Okay, so the autumn leaves photopolymer stamp and dies. Again, I do this. I put everything in one so I don't lose them. And this is the leaf die we're going to use. And then it also has the veining die. So we're going to do that out of gold. And then I really like these banner dies. They've got like a little bumps there that are going to create that stitching look to it. So there's quite a few dies in that set. There's 12 stamps, and there's got to be more than that for dies. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 16 dies. We do most leaves, and they look just gorgeous when they're done. You can stamp the same, that there's a corresponding stamp. I found with this color and all that was going on in the background, I really didn't need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a piece here. I don't want to be too thick because I only have so much thickness to go through here. So I'm good there. Then I'm going to bring in the gold, and we're going to do this with the gold as well. We're going to run this on gold paper. This is Recollection brand gold, but Stampin' Up! Does have gold paper. So just be aware that isn't a Stampin' Up! Product. Okay, so our plates, we need number 1, and then we need the cutting plate. And you'll notice I have one plate that's really cut up and another plate that's not. I personally try to just use one cutting plate, then and use this one on the top all the time. Then when this one gets really bad, I buy a new set of cutting plates. This one then becomes the one I'm going to cut on, and I just have to introduce a new one at a time instead of 2 at a time. And I can try to keep this fairly flat, because when you work something like with foil, if there's marks on your cutting plate, they sometimes transfer into your onto the foil, and you don't want to do that. So I find if I can keep one smooth, that prevents that from happening. All right, so that's my leaf cut. There we go. I'm going to save that piece because I'm coming back to do my banner. And here's the veins, and I do have a little piece of washi tape. Let's see if I can keep using it there. Now with the mini, you do want to make sure your plates kind of don't all come even. I've been told they're supposed to create like an E shape there, and that way it feeds into the rollers better. The big machine apparently doesn't have that issue, but the small machine does. So it took me a little while to figure that out, and to have to get support to give me some guidance there on that. Okay, so you'll see that's kind of stuck in there because it's so fine. So that's tape didn't stick to my fingers. Sometimes just dropping it on the glass mat helps pull that out. So the idea now is we're just going to put the veining on there. Now, a couple things here again. These are very fine, and if we just slap the glue on there, it can get messy. So I'm going to, again, do the little thin glue strip, or little strip, not strips, threads here of glue. Try to just get it on ever so slightly. And especially when there's gold on the other side, I want to be very cautious, because I don't, and this is a new one, so it's not wanting to cooperate as well. One thing I have done, if you find this difficult and you just aren't having any luck, is put a little dab of glue on a piece of paper or something and grab a toothpick and then just feed it on. So what we're just going to do is put it on here like this. You also can get, and Stampin' Up! Sells them, it's like a sticker sheet. And so it allows you to place it on the cardstock. So I would have taken this whole piece of gold cardstock, placed it, the two-sided sticker sheet on there, and then cut it. And then when I pulled it out of the die, it would have been an exact size sticker for me. So there's my leaf that's going to go on there. I've got the veining that's going to do that drying. So you can see here that glue is clear. So now what I want to do is just line it up. This is a little bit ski-haw because I did wet it, right? Loosen those fibers up, so now it's wet and not going to be as easy to lay down. But there we go. So those corners are holding, and away we go. You can see it's stuck there, and you can't see them. I think running that whole run through was a little bit much, and that was my problem. So I could come through and touch up in here where it is still a little bit, still raised a little bit. And because it's raised, I'm going to let it dry before I put it down. I'm not going to stick it quite yet, but I'll just stick some glue in here. There we go. And let it do its thing. Okay, so that's there. Now we want our banners for the sentiment. So here's the die, and I cut 2 of them. It's too narrow. So I'm just going to cut one here. And I'm going to go back to that. No, I had this. That's right. I saved this for this. So waste not, want not, right? All right. And these dies are so awesome, and our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machines are so awesome that for the majority of things, I can cut 2 pieces of paper at once. Now, keep in mind that this DSP is a little bit thinner, and it should be something that is fairly easy. It's not intricate. Like the veining, I would not do that with it because there's just too many little pieces. All right. And the other thing is if you have something square, try to go in on an angle so the pressure hits that corner first and not the end. And that way it will just roll through a little bit easier. I might roll it back just to make sure I've gone through those 2. There we go. And cut through both. Just poke them out. Just like that. And with this Glass Mat Studio, you get this nice little tray, silicone tray that everything fits nicely in. So you'll see these are the exact same die, but here I just had a little bit peeking out of each side, so corresponding to what is over here. So I'm just going to take this and cut it in half. You can do it with your snips. You can do it on your paper trimmer. It doesn't have to be completely even because you're not going to see these ends. You're just going to, the top and bottom, you're just going to see the ends. That's just going to peek out there, right? So I could have just cut a little part off each and that would have been fine. All right, I'm not going to glue them on quite yet though because I want to stamp on here. Now with mine, what I did was some gold foil. Didn't quite like how it worked. So I'm going to do some heat embossing for this. Or you can do a darker color. Actually, maybe let's just do that. Let's just see how a darker color looks on our Cajun Craze. I've got this Early Espresso, which is a good dark color. I think it might be just as good or better than the black. And let's find our stamp. Where did my block go? Here it is here. All right, so I'm just going to give it a kind of a test here. Need to find my paper. Just my scratch paper. Always have some handy just to give it a try, especially for things like this. So I'm not going to get all that on there, but we'll see how it looks. Yeah, I think that looks fine. Shows up quite nicely. So that's what we'll do. And we'll save embossing for another day. So I'm just going to make sure that's all off there. And I'm going to take it. Just don't mind my head if I get my head in the way. Make sure it's nice and straight. Let it sit for a second. Come up, and there we go. And my chamois over here to clean it off. All right, so I'm thankful. Now, other things we've got in this saying that comes with this kit is the I'm thankful or with a grateful heart. Autumn teaches us that change can be beautiful, or for all you do today and every day to have you as a friend. So I'm going to put, I'm thankful for all you do. It's very simple. It's small. Kind of wish it was a little bit bigger for the inside sentiment, but I think that's the one we're going to use. But right now, let's glue these on. Whoa. I guess that's almost ready if it's sticking to me there. Okay, so just my ends here. I'm going to throw some glue on here, just a little bit. You don't need a lot. And be mindful that with glue, any glue, on white paper especially, if you use too much, it's actually going to make it wrinkle. And you see it quite a bit through the paper. So just like you saw how that little spritz of water loosened the paper up, glue is wet as well, and it will loosen the fibers up. So you don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to. All right, so there's our sentiment. Let's put our veining on our leaf. So we're just going to line this up. I just kind of make sure I get the center. So I'm looking at where the center is there, and then these all kind of get on here. Now, I did bejigger that a little bit, so I come in here with my sharp end of my take your pick tool and just pull that glue off. And that was because I was a little too eager. And so there we go. Something sharp helps get those little bits of glue out. Toothpick works well also. All right. Let's see if I can get that off the... Okay. But lesson learned, wait till it completely dries. But there is my leaf. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous set. I'm glad they kept it for another year, another season. They do have a lovely new set. It comes with a particular, a special embossing folder that does kind of two different cuts and embosses at the same time, which is quite nice and quite unique. But when you've got one you like, why bother buying another one? And I really like this one. So I'm going to use some tear and tape. And the tear and tape is going to, oops, that's the old card of the previous one. Now, that's dry. Oh, it's not dry enough. I put a lot of glue in there. I didn't realize I put so much in. So, that's because it's that new piece. And I'm just going to wipe that off. Man, that was a mess and a half. Okay. Again, note to self. All right. So, the tear and tape. I'm going to open this up, and in this book binding. So tear and tape is basically two-sided tape that, guess what? You can tear and it tapes. Sticky stuff you can rip, so you don't need to get your scissors out. And this is less sticky. This, if any of you are thinking, oh, well, why not just use that for under vellum? This is very visible. You don't want to do that. So we won't. But I'm going to put this under here. I'm going to give it a burnish, rub down. And then I'm going to take your pick tool, lift up, and see, you can see it on the paper. So can you imagine how much you're going to see it under vellum? And it never fails, right? You do things 100 times off camera and things are just perfect. And then you start working on camera and you mess things up. Okay, so don't stick it down yet. Take your ribbon, put it along that edge. So it's not going to cover the vellum edge, but it's going to come close to it. Stick it down the ribbon. This tear and taper is great for a ribbon. And then you're going to put down. And this is just a copper ribbon that was again in last year's kit, catalog rather. There is corresponding ribbon. So as long as it corresponds with what you've got, the colors that you have, then use it, right? I'm all about the Stampin' Up! Products because they are so versatile. They all look so well together. Everything just coordinates and it's so easy to use. But I'm also for doing the work. If you enjoy crafting, just do it. Whatever you've got, start using it and craft. If you are struggling with what do I do, how do I start, you need some inspiration, then Stampin' Up! Is a great resource because it does have all these things that coordinate. And it also has suites. So this was a suite that I bought. And that means it came with all of the DSP. So all of that DSP I showed you, the fall one. It came with some special gold copper paper, fancy papers, with some embellishments, with the ribbon, with like everything was there, and the stamps. So I just had to buy the ink and the cardstock to go with it. Other than that, it was all there. So it makes it really, really easy when you're trying to figure out what do I do, where do I start. You just don't have that inspiration. That's a good place to find that is through their suites. And if you're wondering what suites are available, just search on Stampin' Up. If you go shop products, you can go to suites and go to, if you're in Canada, put Tanya Hamilton as your demonstrator or Sissy's Cards and Crafts, and you will hopefully find me. And then you can shop my products, which I would really, really appreciate. Okay, so we are going to put this on here. I'll try to link to you on this video that shopping link. And I believe the new fall products does have that suite, so there's a good spot to start. So I didn't glue this little part down because there was a lot, but I'm going to make sure I get that under our sentiment there. So I just kind of tacked it down. So now it's all stuck down. When you're gluing on top of this embossed, anything embossed, but here particularly the embossed vellum, make sure you use significant amount of glue, but don't put it towards the edge because when you push it down, it's going to squish. So make sure you kind of run it in the inside. All right, so open it up. And I found, you know what? I got this little piece left over. I'm just going to throw that in there. And I really liked how it kind of looked like it was a continual piece under there. So if that's something that you think looks great, go for it. If you don't particularly care for that, then don't worry about it. But I like dressing up the inside of my card as well. And the envelope. If you have extra DSP or paper that coordinates, or even just a stamp, dress your envelope. Makes it quite nice for the recipient and for the mail carrier. Okay, so I'm going to have this piece of paper go in here. And again, we've got 4 1/4, so I want about 4 inches. word, my fingers just do not want to cooperate today. So this is going to be the inside part for my sentiment. And if it's, you want to include more, you can always put something on the other side or even the back. But that's going to be where I will do my sentiment. And what was it we said we were going to do? The For All You Do. So this is a very, very tiny one. Just so tiny. It is a smaller card. Making it a book binding like this does kind of make it a little bit smaller. So we're helpful in that regard, but all right, so I'm gonna use the same Cajun clay or copper clay and just double check that looks good. I have heard of some stamps coming through and they don't work. When we run a lot of stuff through fabricating tools. Sometimes the odd one doesn't work out, and sometimes they don't get caught when they're going through their checks. So, do a double check, and if you find your stamps don't work, you have 30 days to notify them and let them know. So always have a good check. And you'll note here, I want to mention too that you will get some staining of certain stamp colors. Usually anything with a lot of reds. So reds, orange, browns, those will stain your stamps. They does not affect how they work. They still work the same. They do great. But they will stain. It's just what's in the ink and how the ink is made. Okay, so here's some leaves. Let's just do a stamp off and decorate up that inside. So I've got these double leaves. I'm going to ink them up. With the photopolymer, I can see that they're inked up. I'm going to stamp off, and then I'm going to come here and I'm going to get a nice light inking. It's actually darker than I thought it would be, but it's a lot lighter than what it was before. That's our Mossy Meadow green, which I think looks really nice. And then I'm just going to put this in the card. So here we go. We've, in 40 minutes, made a nice little card. And of course, that's me yattering away. It doesn't have to take quite that long, but away you go. And maybe I'll get quicker in running and doing the videos. So thanks for joining me. If you like this video, if you watched, please make sure you thumbs up, like it, comment, all that fun stuff. And check out my shopping link if you're in Canada at Sissy's Cards and Crafts and or Tanya Hamilton. And have a wonderful September, because it's 1st of September. So happy fall, everyone, and happy back to school. All right. Thank you. Take care.